Hello again, I'm Anna Dellman. It is day number 116 of my progression to 365. Today, my note of encouragement to myself is grief and or sadness. What are you feeling? I decided to eventually discuss this. It's not something that I just thought of this morning or yesterday to talk about today. However, after day 115, know your soul. Do you rationalize your emotions, your feelings, your conscience, and your guilt? And considering that I had discussed that, I thought, what is an emotion deep within my own heart that I have struggled with the most? And I think that is grief. Now, I decided to look at sadness and grief because my understanding, to be sad is a momentary thing. And then I researched that a little bit more biblically, and sadness, yes, is a momentary thing. We can be sad because something went wrong or is missing from our life. It's always related to people, places, and things, PPT, and it's a response to that something has gone wrong, and we feel it. Or we look back at an event that troubled us in our past, and we are sad just thinking about it. It's more of it becomes a disappointment, and we sad for a moment. However, grief is when something has disrupted us greatly in life. Something traumatic has happened in PPT, people, places, and things. Sadness is part of what grief is about. We are knocked over, we are bowled over by something, and we are sad, we are grieving. Grief is complex. It consists of anger, disappointment, hurt, being cut deep to the core of our being. So sadness, as I said, is part of grief. And to fully understand our grief and how it affects our functioning, I broke it down to the depth of our grief and how it affects the breadth of our living. Grief goes down to the core of who we are. It goes all the way down and lands on our heart, our soul, our psyche, and from there we process it, and it affects us horizontally, the breadth of our life, your work, your career, your relationships, your daily functioning and existence. However, when our grief is vertical, it is related to a church event, and I refer to it as a vertical grief. The depth of it's because it lands on our soul. And our soul is the place where our relationship with God exists. When an attack comes to that depth, it bowls you over in your functioning, because it's at a place where you least expect grief to occur. But yet it is a correct grief. It is a just grief. When you take that grief back to God and back to the Bible, and you acknowledge that you're struggling with it, and you look at, did God grieve? Sure he did. Genesis 6:6, God grieved with what was happening in society at that time, all the way back in Genesis. And there are seasons in the Bible where it talks about God being grieved, Jesus grieved, the Holy Spirit was grieved. If they can be grieving, that means our grief is right too. And when our grief is equal to theirs, the Trinity, when it is equal to theirs because of what they've observed about people, places, and things, and our grief is the same, it is an acknowledgement that God is right in the way he responds and how he views those situations. So then our grief becomes worshipful. If it's equal to what God calls bad and ugly about life, it is equal. And then when our grief is equal, it is acknowledging what God has said, it becomes worshipful. And when we understand that, friends, we are glorifying God, because we are saying what he sees about the people, places, and things as not good, ugly, and grievous, and we can call it the same thing. This is my second recording of this today. I'm an early riser. I usually do my recordings in the morning. However, I was just concerned about what I had recorded and wanted to look at it again. So I'm going to be posting this one instead, because the other one was emotional. Rightly so, righteously so, correctly so, because God was grieved by it, by why I was that emotional. I had awakened this morning. I was up at 3:45. And then I had the news on, and I was confronted wherever I went on the news, social media, with the assassination of a young man. Friends, if you are grieving, your grief is worshipful, because God is grieved by what occurred. And we have every right to be sad at what occurred, because the young mom, a wife, a mom, has to tell her children about an event. Now that should grieve anybody. Besides, put the politics aside. This is not what our discussion about grief is about. It's not political. It's spiritual. And so in sharing that, it should awaken our compassion, and it should awaken something deep within inside of us, that we can know our sadness, our grief is worship when it's directed at God, and he hears and he sees, and he is just. So until tomorrow, hopefully, I haven't decided on what my note of encouragement will be for myself and to share with you, to encourage you too. Hopefully it will be something more joyous. So until tomorrow, take care and God bless, and we will talk again. Bye-bye for now.